your life, and you're talking about him as if he lived through your teenage years. You know what I'm saying? That's amazing to me.
Yeah, when we saw that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, because number one, the things that I saw, because my mother had me so young, we still live with my grandparents.
Okay.
So the things that I saw,
Okay.
you know, and I saw how he handled certain situations. I saw how he handled me.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he passed, like, me and my grandmother were so close. She was like my best friend. I would, you know, just sit in my grandmother's kitchen for hours, and we would talk, and she taught me how to cook and all this stuff. And me and my grandmother was just, the stories that I would hear,
Okay.
you know, your grandfather did this, your grandfather did that.
Okay. Because I'm sitting here like, my mind is blown, because I'm like, he was only 9 years old, but he's talking about this man like, you know, he was there forever.
Exactly. But see, that's the point I was making earlier. That essence, that presence of that man in the house. Did he sit down and teach you all of those things?
Absolutely.
You know, what happens is,
But even after he passed, just the stories that you heard about him. And I mean, it was imprinted on you.
And then the fact
It's
that,
the
and the fact that I'm his namesake, because, you know, because then again, it wasn't just my grandmother, it was my uncles, it was my aunts, it was everybody, because like my grandfather was truly the head of my family. You know, he was Don Corleone. You see what I'm saying? So I got all those stories from so many different people. And like, if you've ever seen the movie Soul Food, that's my life. I'm that little boy. I'm that boy. You know, and you know, so I got all the stories and everything, and you know, that's who I try to emulate.
now, just sharing with you, and Doc, this is a whole other twist. My grandfather was in my life until I was 10 years old.
Excuse me, I'm gonna excuse myself for a moment. I know
We'll
you all
take
can
a break.
see. No, you all can finish the conversation, because I don't want any time wasted, but I'm just gonna excuse myself because we on camera, so y'all don't know what's going on. Y'all continue on, please.
All right, fellas, let's light it up. All right? I'm sorry. So anyway, well, Doc, I needed you for this commentary, so I'm gonna wait until you get back.
Okay.
Gentlemen, what's on your minds? Welcome to the Doctors of Mind show. Up on it with Charlie
There's
Rose.
still a female here, so don't forget that it's not all guy talk.
That'll work.
But it's, to me, like I'm saying, it's all about presence. Presence. We need to be, our presence need to be there.
Now, I was told that my presence. I'm sorry, let me say this in a very constructive way. I'm trying to learn how to reframe my words. I've been told by some very important people that presence is not enough, and it's a critical part of engagement that has to take place, not just presence. Now, I grew up a little different. Presence was enough when it came to dad. You know, it was enough for, I believe, for the girls in the neighborhood who grew up with their fathers around them. And now, I'm not saying it's the absolute, but what I'm saying is that everybody I knew still sort of had that attachment to their father because their father was present. What I was saying earlier before you went is that my grandfather was in my life till I was 10. My father is still in my life to this day at 78. And my family life was still a disaster. So I know. Explain now.
Well, okay, go ahead.
I was just saying, presence, that's right, presence is not enough, but it's crucial.
Understood.
It's crucial.
Understood.
It depends on what kind of presence.
Understand.
Because you have the negative influence and you have the positive influence. So from the aspect of looking at it that way, it absolutely matters what type of presence you are exposed to. Because if you're growing up in an environment where there's a lot of abuse, mental, physical, emotional, verbal, financial, you know, that's going to shape who you are as a child. You know, if you grow up in an environment where the man is emotionally there in a healthy place, helping you find your identity, helping you shape your self-esteem, helping you shape, you know, your character, in a positive way. That's going to add to who you are. So it depends on what type of influence that person brings with their presence. So presence itself is not enough. It depends on what type of presence they bring with them. Because either way, they're going to affect you. You know, whether they are there, it's going to affect you, or whether they're not there, it's going to affect you. Whether it's a good presence, it's going to affect you. Whether it's a bad presence, it's going to affect you in some way.
You know, and I often go back to this, Doc, when you talk. Perhaps there's a shift in society that the Neanderthal just did not rise up to the 21st or 22nd century or whatever it is that we're in, because when you look at society when we were agriculture-based economy, the father was gone most of the time because of dealing with trying to feed the family off the land, clothe the family off the animals. He was gone. And then you waited till the boys were old enough to take him with them. But you still had that kind of a relationship with fathers throughout time. In today's society, there's a pressure that goes on in today's society because we're not farming our relationships. We're not farming our land. We're not farming our homes. We're not farming our relationships, because I have to spend 65% of my day away from my mate, 70% of my day away from my child. He goes to school, I go to work, and then come together and try to backfill all of that over and over again. And that's if you're in the house. So even if you're in the home, when you quantify the amount of time in today's society you can spend with your children, talk to them.
That's why, though, as a man, and you have a family, you must dedicate that time. When I was married and I had my children, I had a job, I had my own business. However, Sunday was family day. We were going to do something as a family, whether it's go to the water park, go to the zoo, sit around the house and just watch TV. Sunday was the day after we got out of church. We shut everything down and we spent the entire day together as a family. So if the kids wanted to play Uno, Monopoly, dominoes, whatever, you have to sacrifice and make that conscious effort to spend time to be present, but it must be a positive presence. No sense of being in the house on a Sunday beefing, beating the kids because they did something wrong. I mean, you have to take that time and do something positive with the kids so they get that time with you. And you know, the funny thing with me is like my kids now, they just totally take me for granted, and I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. I mean, because there's so many kids out here that don't get to spend time with their father and stuff like that. So.
One thing that I agree with that totally. One thing that I did with my children, when they came home from school, I was blessed to be doing real estate at that time. When they came home, it was always study hall, first and foremost. Okay, I'm sitting there as teacher. I had a black or whiteboard, everything. We need to work out things on the whiteboard, then we do that. But this first 2 hours, hour or 2 hours, how many, much time it needs for you to finish your homework or whatever, we're gonna do this when you get home. After that, I delegated things that each one did each night. Like, I like to cook, but I wasn't gonna cook every night. So what I was doing, I was teaching them. I said, okay, I want you to make up your menu. Everyone's gonna have a certain night. I want you to make up a menu. I used to be a chef also. So that's one thing I wanted to kind of pass on to them. So I said, all right, everyone needs to make up a menu. Bring your menu to me, and this is what we're gonna go out and buy what you need for you to fix, what you need to fix, for dinner that night. That is yours. Also, once a week, we did something as a family. I don't care what it was or what they had to do. I said, look, Saturday nights is always our night, family night. We're gonna do something. Friday night was me and my wife's night. Saturday night was the family night. Because everyone seemed to be scattered and things like that. But it takes that presence. We need to step up and say, hey, we're gonna do something together. Every Saturday.
Yeah, well, I can say one thing I just learned from you both today, no matter how busy, like your schedule could get, that consistency, even if it's that one day a week, that's something that I learned today that I want to implement to my children in the future. That if I give them one day that week, it can mean a lot. That sounds powerful.
Interacting with your kids
I'm glad that you picked that up because my next question to you was going to be, with you being in the entertainment industry, you know, you're starting to pick up more gigs and, you know, things like that. Eventually, you are going to be busy. So going into a new marriage, you know, entering into eventually family, you know, how do you see yourself?
Creating some balance. That's what I would say.
The key thing I learned was just communication.
Mm.
I feel, you know, I learned that if I, as long as I keep the communication there, and she understands what's going on, we have an understanding of what the schedule's going to be like in this season. Because we live our lives by season. You know, both of us are all over the place when it comes to our schedule. I feel like that's the closest we can get to being consistent with a balanced life. So the communication is not there. And I'm sure you guys can attain to it. I feel like that's when it gets messy. That's when, you know, there can be confusion. But even so far, you know, we both already kind of been traveling with our careers where we stayed strong through communication. Always know what's going on, always know where I'm at. You know,
So have you started to consider when you all start to have babies? You know, because when you shooting a movie, you don't get to say, "Oh, I got to go home for this one day a week to make sure I spend time with my children."
Right.
You know, those are, you know, as you talked
conversation.
about, you know, that's something that you heard tonight. I need to make time. So how do you see yourself kind of implementing that?
We had conversations about that, but that's something we honestly cannot attack until
Until it gets
that
there.
season get there. 'Cause I can say anything right now, and then life go completely different.
Use technology to your advantage.
Mm.
If you all webcam together, play a game together, whatever, you can do that.
Wow, I like that. I like that. Yeah, that's good.
You may not always be able to get there physically, but you can get there.
So
And
what
be
I,
there, you know what I
Presence,
mean?
like you said.
So-
Until you can get there physically.
so what I hear you saying is you have to use different resources in order to be there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever resources you can.
Okay.
Another thing, one thing that I learned later in life that I didn't learn because when I was in my 20s, I was chasing paper. It was, I mean, again, having been poor, I was not going to be poor. But what I've learned is you're going to always make money. You're always, I mean, if you're doing the right things, opportunities are always going to come your way. So you don't have to chase the dollar. Some days you can be like, I can't take this gig tonight because I'm spending time with my babies, or we're going here. And that's something that I didn't do when I was in my 20s. Now, and then another thing, when it comes to the kids, because women make supreme sacrifices, and then a lot of times, men don't.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Sacrifice. I mean, I was coaching basketball. I was coaching basketball, and I loved coaching basketball. But when you coach basketball, like as soon as I get off work, I gotta go to the gym, and then I'm not getting home till 9 o'clock at night. And it was driving my wife crazy because she was like, "It's not fair. I gotta get the kids. I gotta cook. I gotta do the homework." So what I did is I switched my schedule where we practice at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I made my team get up at 5 o'clock. They was in the gym at 6 o'clock. They're out of practice by 7:30. Then I can go to work, and then I can come home and spend time with my kids.
Wow.
So sometimes, so that way I got to keep doing what I wanted to do. And I was only out of the house Tuesday and Fridays when they had those basketball games. But the other days, I was home. I could come home. I could help with the kids. I could spend time with my kids. So just remember, you know, when you do have your child, just keep in the back of your mind, you're always going to be able to make money and sacrifice.
Another thing is to be a part of their activities. My son was playing basketball, I was coaching. My daughter was playing basketball, I was coaching. Both teams.
So what I hear you all saying is that as you move towards getting your proper place or establishing your proper place in your home, in your environment, is that you have to be creative. You have to be willing to make sacrifices, and you have to be consistent.
And be involved.
Absolutely.
Engaging.
Absolutely.
Very important. Very
Thank you
important.
guys for that. Yeah, seriously.
Okay, well, we're gonna take a break and pay some bills, and then we will be right back. I hope you guys are enjoying our guests tonight. They are giving some awesome knowledge tonight, and we're gonna move into another phase when we come back. So give us a few minutes and we'll be right back.